Eagles fans, can you believe it? It's Championship Sunday. Philadelphia is the place to be. It's the top two seeds in the NFC battling it out for a ticket to Super Bowl 57. Eagles fans have been tailgating for hours. They're ready to give the 49ers a nice Philly welcome. It's 50 degrees at Lincoln Financial Field. Beautiful weather for a Sunday afternoon in January. It's time for championship football. Welcome to the Kickoff Show presented by Little Caesars. I'm Ella DiGiovanni, joined by Fran Duffy. Like I said, top two seeds in the NFC. The message all week has been, it's good on good, Fran.
There's no question about it, because if you rewind to October, November, December, every stage of the NFL season this year, you would have said that the top two teams in the NFC are the Eagles and the 49ers. It only feels right, Ella, that they are the two teams fighting for NFC supremacy here today at the Lincoln Financial Field.
It's interesting, too, when you talk about good on good, both of these teams match up almost identically from a statistical standpoint. You got the top two defenses in the NFL going at it, and then two offenses that are highly efficient.
And that's the thing, is if you look at the categories that kind of describe what a quality football team is, you think of points per game, pressure rate, turnover ratio, third down. You go across the board, every key statistic, and you can see a handful of them here on both sides of the football. These two teams, relatively even. And that's why, as you and I were kind of going through the numbers this week, we both feel it's more likely than not that this is a close game. I cannot wait for kickoff. We are on the doorstep of what should be a great football game.
You saw the numbers here on your screen. These two teams have a lot of similarities, like we mentioned. We'll dive into the possible mismatches throughout the show and talk about areas where the Eagles can take advantage. But, Fran, if this ends up being a close game, like you mentioned, like a lot of people around the league have predicted, where do the Eagles have the edge?
That's the thing, is you and I have been watching football for a long time, and when you think about what gives one team an edge over the other in a close game, it comes down to a handful of things. In-game management, I think you would give the edge to Nick Sirianni in that battle. If you look at quarterback, I'll take Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy any day of the week. Line of scrimmage play, the Eagles win that one handily as well. The best offensive line and defensive line in football. The 49ers, they travel all the way from the Bay Area to the East Coast. The extra day of rest, that's in favor of the Eagles. And then you factor in the home field advantage, what the Eagles have worked all season for, playing in front of these fans at Lincoln Financial Field. Ella, we know the impact that group can have, and they've been getting ready all day.
Surely. The last time the Eagles hosted an NFC Championship game was back in 2018. We all know what happened against the Minnesota Vikings. Here's the team in warm-ups that night back in 2018, Fran. This was warm-ups. This is when you knew it was going to get real.
And Chris Long, the former Eagles defensive end, has said famously that they knew at that moment any team in the NFL could have gotten it. Any team in the world could have played the Eagles that day, and the Eagles would have ended up with the W. I expect that kind of energy just moments from now out across the street.
Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon was on that Vikings staff back in 2017. He got a heavy dose of Eagles fans that day. Here's what he had to say about his first Philly playoff experience.
In warm-ups, a guy that I was, coaching, he looked at me with a look in his eye like, whoa, Harrison Smith. And I said, whoa, back. Like, you could feel the energy, and it's awesome. I mean, this is one of the best atmospheres that you're going to get in the National Football League. And obviously, being the championship game, it'll be heightened. But, I thought the energy in the building was just phenomenal, before kickoff, as the game got going. And, it's a tough place to play. It's a big advantage for us.
I saw a 49ers player earlier in the week in a press conference say that, I hear Philly's tough, but it's tough to play in Levi Stadium. I think he's in for a rude awakening today, Fran. When I woke up this morning, I opened Twitter right away. I was so excited, and I saw a reporter from NBC 10 tweet out at 6 a.m., look at this, a line of cars. They've been there since 4 a.m., parked, waiting to get into the parking lots. This is going to be a little different scene than they're used to out in San Francisco. Nick Sirianni shared this week his sentiments on the impact Eagles fans have on the atmosphere.
Our crowd inspires us. Our crowd makes it difficult for the opposing team with how much communication that has to happen in this great game. And so and they're hostile. They are hostile, and I knew that as being an opposing coach that coming here, how intimidating it can be. And so they'll make life difficult. There's no doubt for this team that's coming in here because of who they are as fans, and it's going to be loud. We'll feed off that, and it's going to be energetic.
Now for this offense to set the tone today, they need to get out to a fast start. Earlier in the week, Fran, on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, Ben Fennell said not only a fast start, but an efficient start. That's what we saw last week against the Giants. They were extending drives. The defense was getting off the field quickly. The offense putting up a ton of points. That's what we want to see here today.
That's the thing, is that there are a lot of ways to start fast. There's been a lot talked about this week about the Eagles' propensity to attack downfield early in games. And yes, that is something we saw last week against the Giants. We've seen it the majority of this season. But there are a lot of ways to start a football game fast. The Eagles can go tempo, they can go hurry up, they can do lots of different things to put stress on this San Francisco defense early in a game. That's a good way to start fast. But to me, Ella, I want to go back to something I said a little bit earlier. We know Kyle Shanahan's one of the best game planners in the NFL. He's got one of the best schemes in the league. There's a reason why they've been to 3 out of 4 NFC title games. But one thing we know about him as a coach, when he gets into the postseason, he is ultra conservative. He is always going to play things a little bit safe. And so when it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, they've got the ability to kick a field goal or go for it. They have shown that they will take the points, that they will not go for that extra little bit to try and see if they can get the edge, get into the end zone for a touchdown. Whereas Nick Sirianni, they have shown, hey, you know what? We can go for it. We've got plenty of trust in our defense. And so if this is going to be a game where the 49ers are settling for field goals and the Eagles are consistently going for touchdowns and they come through in those high leverage situations, I really like the Eagles in this game. That's why, to me, the game management on the offensive side of the football, that tilts in the Eagles' favor.
All eyes will be on Jalen Hurts today. He was named a league MVP finalist earlier in the week. He got to the podium on Wednesday right after that was announced, and that was the first question he opened his press conference with, his feelings on earning that honor. And he said he wasn't aware. He didn't know. And that is the pulse of this football team. It is team-oriented goals. It is not player-specific individuals wanting to win awards and break records as individuals. This is a team-first Eagles team here in Philadelphia. And we're going to see that play out here today. They've wanted it as a team all season long, and that's why they made it to today on Championship Sunday.
Well, you mentioned that it is a team-first unit, as a team-first organization. Well, it's going to take the entire team offensively to handle the 49ers' 3rd down package. I think that's the big test here for this Eagles offense going into this game, because San Francisco, they're very well coached by DeMeco Ryans over on that side of the football, and they have a very clear and defined identity on 3rd down, where they will try and cut loose defensive end Nick Bosa. He led the NFL in sacks this year for a reason. A bunch of them came on 3rd down, and what the 49ers like to do is they like to load the front up on one side of the formation, put 3 or 4 guys to one side of the center, and then put Bosa by himself to the opposite side. So if you are Jalen Hurts, you're Jason Kelce, you have got to decide, how are you going to divert your resources early on in the pre-snap phase? Are you going to say, you know what, we're going to shift our attention over to the heavy side of the formation and deal with all the different stunts and twists they're going to do from over there? Or are we going to make sure that we can get an extra set of eyes on Nick Bosa? How the Eagles handle Bosa on 3rd down will be important in this game, especially, like I said, on 3rd down. That's where the 49ers like to up their blitz frequency. That's where they like to disguise coverage. There is a lot to be played for, and you know me, I am always going to place a lot of importance on 3rd down, especially in a close game like this. That's going to be very, very important to watch here.
I have something for you, Fran. According to Next Gen Stats, Jalen Hurts leads all quarterbacks with a 104 passer rating against zone coverage this season, including the playoffs. San Francisco, they've used zone coverage on almost 90% of coverage snaps in the playoffs. Do you think they look and they game plan for Jalen Hurts and see his success against zone coverage and they try and do something different?
They might, but you know what will happen is we know that what Jalen Hurts can do against man coverage. You think back against the Green Bay Packers, prime time here at Lincoln Financial Field in the middle of the season. The Packers said, you know what, we're going to play man-to-man coverage. We're going to try and win some of these battles on the outside and force Jalen Hurts to make some tight window throws, some tightly contested battles there on the perimeter. So what does Jalen Hurts do? He beats them with his legs, and that is where that X factor comes into play against the 49ers. If they want to try and play man-to-man, which they will do, especially on 3rd down, I think Jalen gashes them with his legs. That will be something to watch, though. If the 49ers try to mix and match from a coverage standpoint, how will the Eagles react? I think we know how Jalen Hurts will take it if they decide they want to play man-to-man coverage.
On Friday night, A.J. Brown was doing some reflecting, it seems, via social media. He found the tweet he posted back when Jalen Hurts was drafted to the Eagles in 2020, just expressing excitement for his best friend. He then retweeted that with a new message on Friday saying, "Now we're about to play an NFC Championship game together. Man, who knew our path would be aligning? God did." That's some good stuff, friend. Gives you goosebumps.
That's the thing, is that you know that this is a team that is just so tightly interconnected, and all the different access pieces that we put out on Eagles Entertainment over the course of the season, you have seen how close-knit this group is, and it's authentic. It is real, and this tweet is a great example of just how close those two guys in particular are.
Going to the ground now, 268 yards rushing last week against the Giants. Another dominant performance from the Eagles' run game today. They'll see a top 3 ranked rush defense. Now, that doesn't necessarily scare the run game in Philadelphia. They've played very good rush defenses in the past and have found success. It'll just be interesting to see what they come out with first. Do they try and run the football and see if they can have success? But guys like Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, they're not going to shy away from a challenge. Kenny Gainwell, he was having a career day last week against the Giants, over 100 yards on the ground.
That's the thing, is when you look at the way that the 49ers like to play against the run, they will stay in that 4-2 nickel front if the Eagles stay in their spread personnel. So if you see 3 receivers on the field, the 49ers will likely stay in that nickel front. And so, will the Eagles be able to try and continue to run the football against those looks? Ella, what makes them so good up front, they are one of the best tackling teams in the NFL. You look at Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga. That is a really good group coming downhill and defending the run, and it's because of how good they are as tacklers. So if you're Kenny Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Jalen Hurts, you've got to create some yards for yourself in this game. But we know the Eagles are going to lean on that offensive line as well.
Absolutely. We've talked so much about where the Eagles can have the edge earlier on in the show. I think one area to look is Philly's wide receiving core against San Francisco's secondary. If you want to find one soft spot in this 49ers defense, it's the outside, Fran.
That's the thing, is when you look at the way that this San Francisco 49ers secondary has been put together, Emmanuel Mosley, their starting corner coming into the year, he got hurt in week 5. So since week 6, this has been the starting group here on the back end for San Francisco. Since week 6, Ella, only one team has given up explosive passes at a higher rate on deep throws down the field than the 49ers. And that's it. The 49ers, that is their number one weakness. You look, they are 31st in the league on those explosive plays allowed on deep throws. Just so happens, A.J. Brown has more yards than anybody on go balls in the entire NFL this year. Devontae Smith on those slot fades. We know the damage he can do downfield. So to me, yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is an area where the Eagles can create a mismatch. Those deep balls outside the numbers to A.J. Brown and to Devontae Smith.
Well, A.J. Brown spoke like a true pro this week about handling the emotions in a game of this magnitude.
You know, you don't got to try to make the game no bigger than what it is. You know, every moment has its own moment, and you just stay focused on within what you need to focus on and to do your job. It's still football at the end of the day, regardless of however many people is watching.
Now, Dallas Goedert's role today will be interesting to watch because the 49ers are tough in the middle of the field. How do you think the Eagles are going to best utilize Dallas Goedert today?
Well, that's the thing, is that we know, Ella, that like you mentioned, that Dallas Goedert, he's one of the best tight ends in football. He's an outstanding threat all across the field. But when you look at the way that he's able to attack defenses, it's not just the middle of the field. And that's why our viewers, they might be sick of me saying things like, oh, he's a 3-level threat. He can attack all 3 levels, all areas of the field. Well, when you have a guy like Dallas Goedert, you can put stress on defenders at every level. Just about 70% of Dallas Goedert's yardage come on the outside thirds, throws that are outside the numbers, outside the hash marks. When you look at it, that's a stat from Next Gen Stats. When you look at Dallas Goedert, it's not just, I'll get him down the seam or a little stick route in the middle of the field. You think of those sail routes, those outbreaking corner routes. You think of the RPO game outside the numbers in the quick game. You think of those over and back routes where it looks like it's going to be a crosser, but then he puts on the brakes and he heads back to the sideline. He had one of those last week against the Giants. There are a lot of ways to get number 88 involved. The Eagles know he is one of their top 3 players on offense. You have got to find ways to get 88 the football. Just because San Francisco is great at defending the middle of the field, I don't think that's going to stop them from getting the ball to Dallas Goedert.
Well, Miles Sanders didn't hold back this week when speaking on the pride he has watching Dallas Goedert's success.
One of the best in the league, point blank, period. You know, that's been my guy since I got here, and he's been here a year longer than me, and just seeing how his growth when Zach was here, putting in the work, and then when he finally got his chance, he just took off with it. And I'm proud of him. And that's Dallas Goedert. He made a name for himself, and definitely one of the best tight ends in the league.
As we bring in these offensive starters, listen up, Eagles fans. We are 22 for 22 in starters that are good to go. Lane Johnson, good to go here today at right tackle. Couldn't have come at a better time for everybody to be healthy, Fran. Yeah,
when you get Avonte Maddox active here on the other side of the football, I think it's so important to have all these guys healthy. And Lane Johnson, look, this is going to be a big test for both he and Jordan Mailata going up against Nick Bosa. What is going to be the plan for dealing with the NFL sack leader from the regular season? Last year, these two teams faced off back in week 2. It feels like a century ago. These two teams were very, very different. But in that game, the Eagles offensive coaches, they were confident in leaving both Lane and Jordan Mailata one-on-one with Bosa. Now, Bosa, that version of him, that was a little bit different than what we saw this year, where he's likely to win Defensive Player of the Year. He was fresh off an ACL surgery, so not quite his full self. But in that game, they felt confident leaving Mailata and Lane one-on-one. We'll see if that's the way they handle it this week. My guess is you'll see plenty of RPOs in the run game to try and throw him off of his rhythm as well. You mentioned it. This game is going to be fought and won in the trenches, starting with the Eagles' offensive line up against the Niners' D-line. Now, we talk so much about the 49ers' defense being the number 1 defense in the NFL, led by DeMeco Ryans, who is a hot candidate for a head coaching job next year. But when you go position by position, the Eagles' O-line against that 49ers' D-line, I'd say the Eagles' offensive line has the edge. Yeah, I would rewind to 8 days ago, Ella, when you and I had that conversation on the Kickoff Show going into the divisional round against the New York Giants. That group was led by their defensive line. The reason why the Giants won that playoff game in Wild Card Weekend against Minnesota was because of their defensive front. Lawrence and Williams and Thibodeau and Ojulari. And this group, this Eagles offensive line, handled them. They didn't breathe on Jalen Hurts. They barely impacted Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell. So when I look at this group, the Eagles offensive line going up against the 49ers, I feel good about that matchup 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100. I feel good about this Eagles offensive line. And honestly, looking at the Giants, I would say that top to bottom, that's a better group up front than the 49ers. They don't have a Nick Bosa. He's the best talent between those two groups overall. But the depth, I think, is in favor of the New York Giants. I think the Eagles handled that group a week ago. They will need to do the same here against the 49ers today. Last week, Jason Kelce's one-arm pancake block went viral on social media, but his daughter Wyatt, however, wanted to one-up him Sunday morning after the victory when Jason and wife Kylie Kelce shared a clip from the monitor of their little girl singing the Eagles fight song in her crib.
What have we done?
Now that's a Philly thing, but another Philly thing is playing some smash mouth defense here this year. The defense dominated last week against New York, holding the Giants to just 7 points. They were scored in the fourth quarter, 5 team sacks, James Bradbury with the interception, you name it, this defense did it.
And it's going to be all about trying to replicate that here against the 49ers and the rookie quarterback, Brock Purdy. Yes, undefeated in his start, Mr. Irrelevant here this year in the NFL draft. But we know that is going to be the big test here for the Eagles. Can they get Brock Purdy off of his rhythm? Can they limit his first read? Because I will say the running joke in NFL media surrounding Kyle Shanahan and his quarterback selection here, Ella, is that he wants to treat the quarterback like a joystick, like he's playing the video game, and that's his proxy. That's him out on the football field. Well, back when I was growing up, if you're playing video games against your brother or against your buddy and you want to disrupt him, you just go and you unplug the remote from the console. You don't do that now these days, but that's what the Eagles need to do here in this game. They need to unplug the remote. They need to get Brock Purdy off of his rhythm, get that first read, and take it away. If you're able to do that, force him to hold on to the football, that's where things can work in the Eagles' favor. When Brock Purdy holds on to the ball for more than 4 seconds, his passer rating drops by 30 points. His completion percentage drops by more than 20 points. That's where you can create some chaos, create some big plays. We saw a number of the coverage sacks a week ago for the Eagles. They came late in the down, forcing Daniel Jones to hold on to the football thanks to great coverage on the back end. If the Eagles could do that in this game, they should win it handily.
This week in a press conference, Brock Purdy was asked if he ever changes the call once Kyle Shanahan puts it in. He said, no, I run what is called, which I think is interesting to think about when he's going to be in a high-pressure situation like he is today, because he's not going to go off script. So if the Eagles find a way to confuse him and get to him, it could cause him to kind of slip up, maybe make a mistake. And the pressure up front is where the Eagles could make for a long day for Brock Purdy. RG3 put out a tweet this week saying the Eagles defense needs to put him in a hot pocket.
Yeah, you go back to last week against Dallas, and they have a great pressure front, the Dallas Cowboys. We know that. Well, when Brock Purdy was under pressure a week ago against the Cowboys, he was 2 for 10 with a couple of sacks. And we know the Eagles, they create pressure better than anybody in the NFL. You go back to last week against the Giants and Daniel Jones. They pressured Daniel Jones. They forced him into some mistakes. You go back to that interception on the second drive of the game by James Bradbury. The Eagles ran a blitz. Daniel Jones, he actually made the right read there. He said, you know what? There's a blitz coming from my left. I'm going to throw into the void where the blitzer just left. Well, James Bradbury, he's laying there in the weeds, and he jumps the throw. That's what I'm talking about. You want to be able to present looks to Brock Purdy that he has not seen yet. Put his mind in a blender, make him trying to second guess what he's seeing out there. Then you let those guys up front go and eat and get after the quarterback.
Now, anyone who knows Brandon Graham, he's going to be chirping Brock Purdy today for sure. They know he loves the trash talk. He's one of the chirpiest guys in the league. Here's BG trash talking during the coin toss last week against the Giants.
Y'all better get some beers going up here, y'all. All right. After we kick their ass, we'll have some beers. Oh, yeah, boy. We running right at you, 9-7. We running right at you. And you know not to run this way. Hey, I'm on that throwing arm all day, hey. Yeah. We running right at you, 9-7. You look like you tired from this week. Uh-huh. I know. I'm going to be watching. Watch me. You going to know. I know. 2-6. Yeah, you better be focused because you know what's up. You feel 5-5 one time. You know. Ooh, I know. I hope you try to chip, boy. You gonna hurt yourself. Okay. I love BG. Tell BG, stop dancing on the ground playing, all right?
If you notice, BG was chirping a defensive player. He doesn't even go up against Dexter Lawrence. Kelsey does. Here's what Kelsey thought about BG's talking.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about that. I told him right after, hey, man, you talk to the tackle, okay? I'll handle this guy. I don't need him more revved up than he already is.
As we bring in these defensive starters, we mentioned at the top of the show, Avonte Maddox is back after he suffered that toe injury on Christmas Eve. It's huge to get him back into the lineup. But when we talk about mismatches here, Fran, where does the defense have the edge?
Well, I think the big thing is you look at along the lines of scrimmage, and I just mentioned how I feel like that's a big area of advantage here for the Eagles, especially on the offensive right side. Mike McGlinchey's a solid player, but he's the weak link at the tackle spot. The right guard rotation they've got there in San Francisco, they don't know who they like more there on the right side. So you look at Fletcher Cox, you look at Haason Reddick. Those two combined for 2.5 sacks a week ago. That's been one of the rocks of the Eagles pass rush all season. Reddick, to me, should have been at least a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. He was not. I think he'll have a little extra motivation here in this game. I think that's an area where the Eagles can really take advantage here of the 49ers offense.
TJ Edwards and Kaiser White have played very sound football all season long. Now they're going up against Christian McCaffrey, where the 49ers have been undefeated since McCaffrey came to San Francisco. We received word a little bit ago that Elijah Mitchell is out today, so that may change things for the 49ers run game. But what's it going to take for the linebackers today to really, really hone in on the tackling?
Well, I think the big thing is, number one, yes, against the run, you want to make sure you lock in because the 49ers, they're going to stick to the run game if it is within 10 points or so. So you want to make sure that if you're TJ Edwards, Kaiser White, lock in against the run and stop those guys on the ground. But in the pass game, especially when they go to that 21 personnel package, so much written about, so much talked about that grouping here, where it's the two receivers, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, the fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, running back, Christian McCaffrey, and tight end, George Kittle. That group, when they are on the field, they love to mess with teams from a formational standpoint. Hey, we're going to put McCaffrey in the slot or out wide. We're going to put Deebo Samuel in the backfield. If you're the linebackers, if you're Avonte Maddox, if you're the safeties, you want to treat that, if they're going to try and get cute, you want to say, you know what? We're not looking at who the jersey number is when they're in the slot. We're looking at that. That's the number 3 receiver. I'm going to do my job. You want to make sure you are assignment sound. Don't get caught up with who's who. We know the Eagles like to play zone coverage. Nick Sirianni says it all the time. It's about what we do. Take that, apply it here to the defensive game plan. Don't start getting confused and start worrying about who's in motion and who's doing what. Just keep an eye on what the formation is. What do they like to run from these formations? Hey, if they're 3-by-2 from this set, what do they like to do? Hey, it's a third down and they're in a 4-by-1 set. What do they like to do? That's where you have to try and focus in on this 49ers offense. Don't fall for the bells and whistles. Don't fall for the eye candy. If you're TJ Edwards, that's going to be the area of focus here in this game against the pass.
Now, the 49ers rank 13th in pass offense, so that doesn't excel as much as they do in the run game. So when you think about the body of work, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, and then Avonte Maddox getting him back into the equation today alongside C.J. Gardner-Johnson, how do you see the secondary playing out against this 49ers offense?
Well, obviously, from a personnel standpoint, it's good on good there, where you have Slay and Bradbury on Debo and Ayuk. Those two guys are explosive, and they're great with the ball in their hands. So that's why, to me, the number one thing for the Eagles secondary, tackle the catch. They're number 2 right now in yards after catch on the season here, the San Francisco 49ers. So if you're the Eagles, if they catch a slant for 6 yards, you better stop that sucker for 6 yards. Don't let it turn into 12, 15, 18, 25 yards. You want to make sure you limit yards after catch. That's the area of focus there. But you got to beware, because we know that teams have loved to run those double moves, especially against James Bradbury. I would not count that out, especially with Ayuk in this game.
We're going to head over to rockin' Lincoln Financial Field, where Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro joins us live. Dave, welcome on in. You spoke last week about starting fast. The Eagles did exactly that. What's the best way for Jalen Hurts and the offense to quickly get in sync against this tough 49ers defense?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ella, because I think that today is just so different. There is such a level of intensity that's at a totally new level for a lot of these players, and I think it's really important for the Eagles to get out and keep this crowd lathered up. And so I see some Jalen Hurts runs. You know, the Niners are just not that experienced against mobile quarterbacks. They played Marcus Mariota this season. Now it was without Nick Bosa, but Mariota 13 of 14, throwing the football, 2 touchdowns, 50 yards rushing, a touchdown. Atlanta beats the San Francisco 49ers. So that is one thing. And then you guys have talked about the vulnerability of the San Francisco 49ers against the deep ball. And I know that A.J. Brown has been a huge focus in practice this week. He gave an incredibly passionate speech in the huddle coming out to the field, and he's ready to go. And I could see the Eagles really looking to get A.J. Brown involved down the field early. Last season, when he was with the Tennessee Titans, A.J. Brown, 11 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. He's very familiar with what the 49ers like to do from a scheme standpoint, and of course, if you throw him 100 balls, he wants 101.
We all know the Cinderella story in San Francisco. Mr. Irrelevant making a playoff run. What's the defensive strategy to put a stop to Purdy and the creative 49ers offense?
Yeah, I think that I really don't expect a Brock Purdy meltdown, because I think he's coached so well that they really mitigate those kinds of opportunities where they put Purdy in a lot of difficult situations. But clearly, you got to stop the run game. Christian McCaffrey limited all week. No Elijah Mitchell. That's a big loss for the 49ers. It was interesting watching Dallas play San Francisco last week and shut down the 49ers run game. So that is really critical. And then bring the pressure against Purdy from a bunch of different angles, much like they did last week with Daniel Jones, much like they've done all season. The Eagles, of course, with that ferocious pass rush. And I think today, if you can get Purdy in some third and long situations and take him off of his first read, squeeze in the middle of the field, don't give him those easy throws over the middle, you might have him kind of come back to reality just a little bit. He's a 7th round draft pick. But I do think that Kyle Shanahan and the way they coach Purdy and scheme up this offense will lessen that. But the more pressure, the more third down long situations, and the more you shut down the run, that all works in the Philadelphia Eagles' favor.
Dave, what's it like over there?
It's interesting, Ella. It's different. I mean, it goes every round. It's a different level, and the sidelines are super crowded. You know, in instances like this is my 7th NFC Championship game with the Eagles. You want to make sure that the players and the coaches don't try to do things to be heroes. Don't try to go outside of their game. So it's a different level of intensity. The stands are virtually full already. Everyone is ready for this championship game.
All right, I'm going to send you into the mayhem, Dave. That was your Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro live from Lincoln Financial Field. Now, this week's Social Spotlight, presented by Ponley Hockey, players told an unmanned camera their go-to pregame song.
Pregame song, Candy Rain. If I could, I'll give you the
Rooster. My pregame song, G Herbo. What?
Bigger Than Life, Nipsey Hussle.
Rolling by Lil Wayne.
30, Kodak.
I'm doing some little Uzi.
I'm a draw. Gunner.
Mad Max, Lil Durk. I listen to a lot of stuff. Oh, Don't Give Up On Me, about Friday, and Meek Mill. I play that every day.
The Kickoff Show is delivered by Little Caesars, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Order online during the Pizza pregame and get it delivered or pick up in store in the Pizza portal. Pizza. Now, I want to point out, in the Social Spotlight, Jalen Hurts was singing Anita Baker. He's not shy about his love for Anita Baker. She's his favorite. Now, this afternoon, she'll be singing the national anthem at Lincoln Financial Field. If that doesn't show you the Jalen Hurts effect, I don't know what does.
Hey, he's got some pull, I think, within the organization to be able to make that happen.
I think he knows a guy.
Yeah.
Well, Fran, I feel like this matchup we can talk about for hours. But if you have to really zoom in on 3 specific things, what are your 3 things to watch?
Yeah, well, for me, number 1 is going to be protecting that guy, Jalen Hurts. And Dave already shared a little bit earlier just the ability to attack downfield, some of those A.J. Brown numbers. I love that from Dave. We know that this 49ers defense is predicated on the pass rush. The Eagles have got to protect Jalen Hurts in this football game. Number 2, something we touched on a few minutes ago, the Eagles have to be able to defend that 21 personnel matchup. I think that's something I'm going to be watching early on in this game. How do the Eagles look to defend it? My guess is it'll be a lot of zone coverage, trying to make sure everybody does their job defensively. And then the next thing, I think this is most important. The Eagles have got to win situational football. If this is a close game like we expect, 3rd down, red zone. Look, the 49ers, they like to slow the game down. They like to limit the amount of possessions. They're going to play good defense. They're going to run the football. They're not going to go hurry up. They're one of the slowest teams in the NFL from that standpoint in terms of pace of play. So every possession matters. Every trip to the end, or to the red zone matters. Last week against the Giants, in the first half, the Eagles went 6 of 7 on 3rd down. They went 4 for 4 in the red zone. You do that again, you win this football game.
I'm going to have you keep working hard here, Fran. What's your Rico extra point?
Well, we've talked a little bit about the 49ers linebackers, right? And so I thought, let's take a look at what makes them so good. We know that this defense, number 1 against the run in almost every metric. A big reason why, these 2 guys, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. But it's not just against the run, Ella, where they stand out. They are excellent in coverage, playing in reverse. They love to play these guys stacked off the ball between the defensive ends. They'll move them around a little bit, but that's where they're going to line up the majority of the time. And these guys lock up the middle of the field. You're going to send a slot receiver down the pipe. Well, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, they can do that. They can run down the field with those receivers. You're going to run 2-man route concepts and try and confuse them in the middle of the field, try and get them running away from the middle. No, those guys study film better than anybody. They pick up these route concepts time and time again. And then off play action, if you're going to try and run the ball and suck those guys up towards the line of scrimmage and then hit a crosser behind it, we know the Eagles like to do that. These guys hunt up crossing routes as well as anybody. And so, if you were the Eagles in this game, we talked about, they're not afraid to get the ball to Dallas Goedert in other areas of the field. Will the Eagles avoid the middle of the field altogether, or are they going to devise some really creative play designs to try and get the linebackers moving one way and attack them the other way? It's something to watch early on in this game.
Last week, I saw someone say Fred Warner is like a DB playing linebacker. Yes. He's going to be a huge challenge for the Eagles offense here today.
No question. And watching him, the number of the plays that he makes in coverage, I would say he's the best coverage player on that defense. Not just the best coverage linebacker, the best coverage player, corner, safety, nickel included.
Whew. Well, it's going to be on the fans to rattle this 49ers team up. We want to give a special shout out to Eagles fans for always bringing the juice, not just in the playoffs, but every week, both at home and on the road. Now, I don't know if this looks familiar to Eagles fans. This was a Poncho guy last week at the tailgate. If you're wondering if he's okay, he is in fact okay because he's at it again. Here we go. This is today out in the parking lot. He takes another dive into the fans. This is just crazy stuff, Fred. I don't know what's going on out there. People are wild.
We like to say Eagles everywhere, especially there. That guy is super, super important.
Zach Bryan taking to Twitter. He said he's getting a tattoo of Go Birds on his body if they win the Super Bowl. We're going to have to check back in on that, hopefully down the road. Dawn Staley, she's coaching today in her Jalen Hurts jersey. Love to see it. What else do we have here? Anita Baker, there she is. Philly, here we come. Can't wait to see Jalen Hurts' reaction when she's out there singing today. The Kelsey family, they are here. Nice. I guess they chose Philadelphia instead of Kansas City today. Love to see it. What else? Ron Jaworski, he's out in the parking lot. Everyone's in the parking lots today, Fran.
Yeah, everybody's ready to roll. There's just so much juice for this game. You got Jim Cramer here. Everybody is going to be psyched up for this game. It's going to be one of the games of the year.
Well, it's time to wrap things up and get ready for some football. Be sure to join us on the post-game show following the trophy presentation as we bring you everything from what's sure to be a thrilling afternoon at the lake. Will Hurts shine and overcome the NFL's #1 defense? Will Brock Purdy and the 49ers Cinderella story come to an end today? Who is headed to the Super Bowl? Here we go, Eagles fans. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the game and go Birds.